The crystalline spires of the Galactic Military Academy pierced the purple sky of Nexus Prime, their surfaces refracting the light of 3 setting suns. Inside the Grand Hall, Commander Krax watched the newest batch of cadets file in, his crystalline form shifting with barely contained disdain. Among the congregation of the galaxy's finest warriors-to-be, one figure stood out painfully: the human. Sarah Chen stood exactly 5 feet 7 inches tall, her dark hair pulled back in a regulation knot, wearing the standard Cadet uniform that seemed to emphasize everything she lacked. No natural armor, no enhanced sensory organs, no obvious weapons, just soft skin and dull eyes. Only 2 of them, Krax noted with derision. Initiates. His voice resonated through the hall, the crystalline harmonics making several organic species flinch. Welcome to the most elite military training facility in the known galaxy. For 10 centuries, the Academy has produced the finest warriors across 17 sectors. You represent the top 0.1% of your respective species. He paused deliberately, his faceted eyes fixing on the human. Most of you, at least. The assembled cadets shifted, a ripple of amusement passing through their ranks. The Valkyrians, silicon-based crystalline beings like Krax, were particularly vocal in their disdain. Their race had dominated the Academy's rankings for the past 3 centuries, their natural armor and ability to channel energy making them formidable warriors. Your first evaluation begins now, Krax announced. Advanced Combat Simulation, Level 3. Cadet Chen, you're first. Sarah stepped forward, her movements economical and precise. Krax noted with interest that despite the whispers and stares, her heart rate remained steady. The monitoring systems built into all cadet uniforms provided vital data, and hers showed none of the stress markers he'd expected. Sir, she said, her voice clear and controlled. Level 3 is typically reserved for second-year cadets. Is this a complaint, Cadet? Krax's crystalline form shifted, creating a subtle threat display that would have been obvious to any Valkyrian. No, sir. An observation. She stepped onto the simulation platform. Ready when you are. The air shimmered as the holographic combat environment materialized. A ruined cityscape emerged, twisted metal and broken concrete creating a maze of obstacles. 3 combat drones materialized, their forms shifting between solid and ethereal states, a particularly nasty feature of Level 3 simulations. Begin, Krax commanded, certain he was about to witness the human's humiliation. What happened next would be discussed in the Academy's halls for years to come. Sarah moved, not with the raw power of a Valkyrian or the predatory grace of the Feladians. She moved like water, flowing through the combat space with an efficiency that seemed to defy the basic laws of motion. The first drone launched a barrage of energy bolts, each capable of delivering a painful neural shock. Sarah was elsewhere before they landed, having committed to her dodge before the drone had even finished targeting. Impossible, whispered Cadet Vex, one of the highest-ranked Valkyrian initiates. She's anticipating the attack patterns. The second drone attempted to flank her, utilizing its phase-shifting capability to pass through a concrete barrier. Sarah dropped and rolled, her hand brushing against a piece of debris. In one fluid motion, she launched the fragment through the drone's momentarily solid form, striking a critical junction. The drone crashed, its systems scrambled. The remaining drones coordinated their attacks, their tactical processors adapting to her unexpectedly effective performance. They herded her toward a dead end, their phase shifting synchronized to prevent any escape. Sarah smiled. She sprinted straight at the wall, and for a moment, Krax thought she'd lost her mind. Then she ran 3 steps up the vertical surface, pushed off in a backward flip, and landed behind the drones. Before they could recalibrate, she'd disabled both with precisely targeted strikes to their weak points, points that weren't listed in any Academy combat manual. Simulation complete, the AI announced. Time: 47.3 seconds. New record for Level 3 initial evaluation. The hall fell silent. Sarah stood in the center of the platform, breathing slightly elevated but otherwise showing no signs of exertion. She turned to face Krax, and he saw something in her eyes that made his crystalline structure resonate with an unfamiliar frequency. Certainty. "Permission to return to rank, sir?" she asked, her tone perfectly respectful. Krax's outer facets shifted through several colors before settling. "Granted," he managed, his harmonics slightly off-key. "Next, Cadet." As Sarah took her place back in line, the whispers started again, but they carried a different tone now. The Valkyrian still radiated disdain, but it was tinged with something new. Uncertainty. The other species watched her with varying degrees of curiosity and reassessment. In the observation booth above the hall, Academy Director Lizara watched the proceedings with her 4 eyes narrowed in thought. The Arcturian matriarch had lived long enough to recognize when change was coming to the galaxy. She tapped a command into her console, flagging Sarah Chen's file for special observation. The human had passed the first test, but Lizara knew better than most that the Academy had ways of breaking even the most promising candidates. The real question was, what would it take to break a species that had evolved on a death world, that had clawed its way to the stars through sheer determination? As the next cadet took the platform, Sarah stood quietly in formation, her posture perfect, her expression neutral. But deep in her eyes burned something that even the Valkyrian's crystalline sensors couldn't detect. The unshakable resolve that had carried humanity from stone tools to starships, the quiet certainty that had made Earth's children the most terrifying species in the galaxy. The games were just beginning. Breaking point. 2 months into the training cycle, the Academy's pristine halls buzzed with tension. Sarah Chen's initial performance had proven to be no fluke. She consistently ranked in the top percentile across most combat simulations, though her methods often left the instructors baffled. Where Valkyrian cadets powered through obstacles with crystalline strength, and Feliddians relied on natural agility, Sarah seemed to bend the very rules of engagement. "She's making a mockery of our traditions," Cadet Vex declared during evening meal period, his crystalline form radiating patterns of frustration. The Valkyrian dining hall, with its acoustically perfect architecture, amplified his words to the assembled elite. "Humans have no place among true warriors." Commander Krax, observing from his elevated position, said nothing. His own attempts to force the human to withdraw had proven problematic. Every escalation in training difficulty was met with adaptation. Every accident in the combat arena ended with Sarah emerging unscathed, often revealing weaknesses in supposedly superior opponents. The Unity Games approach, announced the Academy's AI through the neural network. All cadets report for special training assignment. Sarah arrived at the main arena precisely 3 minutes early, as always. The other cadets deliberately maintained their distance, creating a visible bubble of isolation around her. Only Zara, a young Feliddian whose spotted fur rippled with barely contained energy, offered a brief nod of acknowledgement. Director Lizara's holographic form materialized in the center of the arena, all 4 eyes scanning the assembled cadets. "The Unity Games are a centuries-old tradition," she began, her voice carrying the weight of authority earned through decades of service. "Each cycle, the galaxy's finest academies compete in a series of challenges designed to test not just combat prowess, but tactical thinking and adaptability." Her gaze settled on the Valkyrian contingent. "This cycle's games will feature a new element. Teams will be randomly assigned, crossing species boundaries." The resulting outcry made the arena's dampening fields flicker. Valkyrians didn't partner with lesser species. It was tradition. It was natural law. "Cadet Chen," Lizara continued, ignoring the protests, "you will captain Team 7. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the arena's background hum seemed to hold its breath. "Director," Commander Krax stepped forward, his crystalline form pulsing with carefully controlled harmonics. "Surely there are more qualified candidates." "The assignments are final," Lizara stated. "Team rosters will be transmitted to your neural interfaces. Training begins immediately." Sarah's team materialized on her display. A Valkyrian heavy combat specialist named Rix, Zara the Felideian, and a quantium processor designated X-117. The most mismatched team in Academy history, according to several immediate unofficial polls. "Well," Sarah said to her assembled team, noting how Rix's crystalline structure was practically vibrating with suppressed rage, "shall we begin?" The training scenario materialized around them. A massive underground complex with multiple objectives. Teams had to secure critical points while defending against both automated systems and rival teams. Standard Unity games format, but with one crucial difference. The environment was actively hostile, with shifting gravity wells and random energy discharges. "This is pointless," Rix declared, his voice carrying crystalline harmonics of disgust. "I refuse to take orders from a..." The floor beneath them suddenly inverted. While other teams scrambled in the shifting gravity, Sarah was already moving. She grabbed Zora's arm, using their combined momentum to swing toward a support beam. X-117's quantum processes calculated the optimal response time at 2.3 seconds. Sarah had them stabilized in 1.8. "You were saying?" she asked Rix, who had managed to anchor himself using his crystalline properties, but only after their human captain had secured the rest of the team. Before he could respond, enemy fire lanced through the chamber. Team 3, led by Vex, had taken advantage of the chaos to launch an attack. Their formation was textbook Valkyrian assault doctrine, overwhelming force applied with crystalline precision. "Rix," Sarah called out, her voice cutting through the chaos. "How much energy can your structure absorb and redirect?" The Valkyrian's facets shifted in surprise at the question. "Approximately 300 terajoules, but..." "Perfect. Zara, that support beam will resonate at exactly the right frequency to amplify Rix's energy reflection. X-117, calculate the convergence point of Team 3's attack pattern." Understanding dawned in Rix's crystalline sensors. The plan was elegant, efficient, completely unlike traditional Valkyrian tactics, and yet, "Target point identified," X-117 announced. "Probability of success, 89.7%. "Execute," Sarah commanded. What happened next would be added to the Academy's tactical databases as a classic example of adaptive warfare. Rix absorbed the enemy fire, his crystalline form channeling the energy through the resonating support beam, amplified and redirected by calculations so precise they could only have come from the combined processing power of a quantum AI and a human brain that had evolved to find patterns in chaos. Team 3 never saw the reflected energy burst coming. Their shields collapsed, training markers indicating their elimination from the exercise. Similar scenes played out across the complex as Sarah's team moved with increasing coordination. The human strategies proved unpredictable yet devastatingly effective, combining the natural strengths of each team member in ways that defied conventional military doctrine. Hours later, as Team 7 stood victorious in the central chamber, Rix turned to Sarah. His crystalline form had shifted subtly, taking on a pattern that few humans would recognize as respect. "How?" he asked simply. "How did you know it would work?" Sarah smiled, that same quiet expression she'd worn during her first evaluation. "Humans don't believe in no-win scenarios," she said. "We look for possibilities others might miss because, on Earth, missing them meant extinction. Every human carries that legacy in their DNA, the drive to find a way, no matter the odds." Director Lissara's hologram appeared, her 4 eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Congratulations, Team 7. You set a new Academy record for the training course. Perhaps it's time we all reconsidered our definitions of strength." But not everyone shared the director's perspective. In the observation booth, Commander Krax watched the recordings with growing concern. The human wasn't just succeeding, she was changing things. Centuries of military doctrine, carefully maintained hierarchies, the very foundations of galactic warfare, all being questioned because of one species that refused to accept their limitations. Something would have to be done. The only question was what it would take to break a human who didn't believe in breaking. The hidden truth. The Academy's ancient archives stretched deep beneath the surface of Nexus Prime, their crystalline memory cores holding millennia of military history. Sarah stood before a terminal, her reflection ghostly in the dark crystal displays. It was well past curfew, but her security clearance as a team captain granted her access, a fact that still rankled certain members of the faculty. Searching restricted files again, Cadet Chen. Sarah didn't startle at Commander Krax's voice. She'd noticed the subtle harmonics of his crystalline form minutes ago, though she'd learned to hide such awareness from the Valkyrians. "Studying tactical histories, sir," she replied, keeping her tone neutral. "The Unity Games finals are approaching." Krax moved closer, his faceted form casting fractal shadows. Interesting choice of tactical files. The Terran exclusion period isn't standard reading for cadets. Sarah's fingers paused over the interface. "No, sir. But understanding history helps prevent repeated mistakes." "Does it?" Krax's form shifted, displaying patterns that would have been threatening to a Valkyrian. "Or does it simply reopen old wounds better left sealed?" Before Sarah could respond, the archive's emergency systems flared to life. Red warning lights pulsed through the crystalline walls, and the AI's voice echoed with unfamiliar urgency. "Alert! Ancient defense grid activation detected. All personnel proceed to emergency stations." Sarah's neural interface blazed with incoming data. The Academy's defensive systems, relics from wars fought before humans had mastered fire, were powering up across the planet. But something about the activation sequence pattern teased at her mind. "This isn't random," she muttered, eyes scanning the cascading data. "Return to your quarters, Cadet," Krax ordered. "This is a matter for the faculty." But Sarah was already moving, her fingers dancing across the interface. "Sir, look at this pattern. The activations are sequential, following the old Valkyrian battle meditation forms. This isn't a malfunction, it's deliberate." Krax's crystalline structure froze in a way Sarah had never seen before. "That's impossible. Those protocols were purged after the..." He stopped abruptly. "After the what, Commander?" Sarah's voice was quiet but intense. "After the first contact with Earth." The archive chamber suddenly seemed much smaller, the weight of hidden history pressing down like a physical force. Before Krax could respond, Sarah's team burst in, led by Rix. "Captain, the Valkyrian cadets' harmonics were distorted with urgency. The defense grid's targeting systems are locking onto orbital positions. They're aiming at the civilian stations." Sarah's mind raced. The activation pattern, the restricted files she'd been studying, Krax's reaction. Pieces of a puzzle she hadn't even known existed began falling into place. "This isn't about the Academy at all, is it?" She looked at Krax. "This is about Earth. About what really happened during first contact." The commander's crystalline form emanated patterns of ancient frequencies. Frequencies that spoke of guilt, of shame, of secrets kept for centuries. "The official records say Earth was a late discovery," Sarah continued, her voice carrying the weight of revelation. "That humans were found primitive but promising. But that's not true, is it? Earth was found long before, during the height of Valkyrian expansion." Captain, X-117's quantum processes interjected, defense grid power levels reaching critical threshold. Estimated time to orbital strike capability: 15 minutes. "You don't understand." Krax's voice held harmonics she'd never heard from him. Desperation, perhaps even fear. "We were the supreme warriors of the galaxy. The perfect evolution of combat capability. And then we found Earth. A death world," Zara whispered, her Felidian intuition catching up. "A planet that should have been impossible to evolve on. We tried to conquer it," Krax admitted, his form rippling with ancient shame. "The greatest Valkyrian battle fleet ever assembled. We expected a simple victory over primitive natives. Instead, you found humans," Sarah finished, a species that had evolved under conditions that would shatter crystalline life forms, that had survived ice ages and asteroids and their own nuclear weapons, that looked at a death world and called it home. The fleet never returned. Krax's harmonics were barely audible. Your ancestors didn't just defeat them. They showed mercy, offered peace. It was unbearable. The records were sealed, Earth's location hidden. We rewrote history rather than face the truth. A new alarm blared through the archives. Sarah's neural interface flashed with updated data. The defense grid was nearly ready to fire. Someone in the Academy found those sealed records, she realized. Someone who thinks it's time for the Valkyrians to reclaim their place as the galaxy's supreme warriors, starting with a demonstration of power that would throw the entire sector into chaos. How can you be so sure? Rix asked, his own crystalline form shifting with uncertainty. Sarah's smile was grim, because it's exactly what humans would do if we were driven by pride instead of survival. The difference is, we learned long ago that true strength isn't about domination. It's about adaptation, cooperation, finding a way forward even when every path seems blocked. She turned to her team, including Krax in her gaze. The question is, are you ready to learn that lesson too? Because we got about 12 minutes to prevent an interstellar war, and I'm going to need help from both the galaxy's greatest warriors and its most stubborn survivors. The ancient archive chamber hummed with power and possibility. In the crystalline walls, reflections of past and present seemed to merge. A human captain and her alien team, standing at a crossroads of history that had been centuries in the making. The real test was about to begin. Rising storm. The defense grid's control center is in the ancestral vault, Krax explained as they raced through the Academy's lower levels. It's protected by security systems keyed to pure Valkyrian crystalline signatures. Sarah processed this information as she ran, her mind already spinning through possibilities. Around them, the Academy's emergency protocols had transformed the elegant halls into a maze of lockdowns and force fields. Through her neural interface, she could sense the growing panic in the orbital stations above. Civilian ships desperately trying to evacuate as ancient weapon systems tracked their movements. Pure Valkyrian signatures, she repeated. Rix, how pure is pure? The younger Valkyrian's form shifted in thought. The oldest security systems were designed before contact with other species. They recognize only the original crystalline patterns off. He stopped, his sensors registering her intent. Captain, that's impossible. Even if you could somehow replicate a Valkyrian signature, the power requirements would. X-117. Sarah interrupted. Remember that resonance trick we used in the Unity games? Could you calculate the exact frequency needed to make a Valkyrian crystal structure vibrate at its most fundamental pattern? The quantum processor's response was instant. Affirmative. But maintaining such resonance would require precise control over multiple energy wavelengths simultaneously. The margin for error would be approximately 0.3%. Good thing humans are stubborn about precision. Then, Sarah's smile held that peculiar quality her teammates had learned to both admire and fear. Zara, we're going to need your species' sensitivity to energy fields. Commander Krax, we need a volunteer. The commander's crystalline form displayed patterns of disbelief. You want to use me as a template to fool thousand-year-old Valkyrian security systems. The energy feedback alone could shatter my entire structure. Only if we make a mistake, Sarah replied. And humans don't make mistakes when failure means extinction. A new alarm blared through the complex. Above them, the defense grid's power readings spiked again. 8 minutes to full weapons capability, X-117 announced. What makes you think you can pull this off? Krax demanded, though his harmonics held more desperation than anger now. Because I've spent every night in the archives studying not just your tactical histories, but your biology, your crystalline structures, the fundamental frequencies that make Valkyrians unique, Sarah answered. Humans are pattern seekers, Commander. We evolved to see connections others miss, to find solutions in impossibilities. It's how we survived Earth. It's how we'll survive this. Before Cracks could respond, a new voice echoed through the corridor. How disappointingly predictable. Cadet Vex emerged from a side passage, his crystalline form radiating battle frequencies. Behind him, a group of senior Valkyrian cadets moved into fighting stances. Of course, the human would try to interfere. Vex's harmonics carried centuries of inherited pride. Just as your kind interfered before, denying us our rightful place in the galaxy. This is your plan? Sarah asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Use the ancient defense grid to prove Valkyrian superiority. How many innocent lives are you willing to sacrifice for pride? Pride. Vex laughed, the sound like breaking crystal. This is about restoration. For centuries, we've watched other species join the galactic community, diluting our combat traditions, questioning our methods. The humans were just the first. Today, we remind everyone why Valkyrians ruled the stars. You're wrong, Sarah said quietly. The Valkyrians never ruled the stars. You explored them, fought for them, maybe even thought you conquered them. But true rule requires understanding, adaptation, the ability to see strength in difference. That's why humanity survived your invasion fleet. Not because we were stronger, but because we learned to be stronger together. Enough. Vex's form pulsed with deadly energy. I won't let some soft-skinned primate lecture me on strength. Kill them all. The defense grid activates in 6 minutes. More than enough time to eliminate these witnesses to history. The corridor erupted into chaos. Vex's followers launched a coordinated attack, their crystalline forms channeling energy into deadly patterns. But Sarah's team had trained together, had learned to combine their different abilities in ways that defied traditional combat doctrine. Zara moved like liquid lightning, her Feladian agility creating openings that Rix exploited with precise applications of crystalline force. X-117's quantum calculations guided their movements with microsecond precision, while Sarah flowed through the battle like water through crystal, each movement exactly where it needed to be. The human's mine, Vex declared, charging forward with the full power of his crystalline form unleashed. Sarah met his charge with that same quiet smile she'd worn since her first day at the academy. As their forces clashed, she moved in ways that seemed to deny physics itself, not dodging Vex's attacks so much as being in places his energy couldn't reach. Impossible, Vex snarled, his attacks growing more frenzied. You're nothing. A genetic accident from a death world. That's what you never understood, Sarah replied, her movements never wasting an ounce of energy. Humans didn't survive Earth by being the strongest. We survived by learning from every challenge, adapting to every threat, turning weaknesses into strengths. We're not accidents. We're the product of a planet that never stopped trying to kill us. The battle raged on, but time was running out. The defense grid's power readings continued to climb, and somewhere above, civilian stations were counting down their final minutes. Sarah knew they had to reach the ancestral vault, knew they had to attempt her impossible plan to fool thousand-year-old security systems. But first, they had to survive this storm of crystalline fury and inherited pride. The next few minutes would determine not just their fate, but the future of human-Valkyrian relations. And as Sarah faced down her opponent's raw power with calculated efficiency, she wondered if perhaps this moment had been inevitable since that first, hidden contact between their species. After all, humans had a habit of rewriting history, usually by surviving the impossible. The nature of strength. 4 minutes remained on the defense grid countdown when Sarah's team finally reached the ancestral vault. The massive doors, made of pure crystalline material that predated the academy itself, thrummed with ancient power. Behind them lay both the controls to the defense grid and centuries of hidden history. Now comes the impossible part, Sarah said, her breathing controlled despite the recent battle. Vex and his followers lay subdued behind them, their crystalline forms temporarily locked in resonance-damping fields. X-117, begin calculating the resonance frequencies. Zara, I need your energy sensitivity at maximum. Rix, be ready to channel power. Commander. Crack stepped forward, his form still showing battle damage from their fight through the Academy's lower levels. This plan is insane, he said, but his harmonics held a new note, something almost like hope. Even if you can match the pure Valkyrian frequencies, the security systems are designed to destroy any imperfect attempts at access. Then we'll have to be perfect. Sarah placed her hand against the crystalline door, feeling the subtle vibrations that had fascinated her during her late-night study sessions. Humans are good at that, when we have no other choice. The next 3 minutes were a symphony of precision and desperation. X-117's quantum processors calculated resonance patterns that hadn't been used in centuries. Zara's natural sensitivity guided their power modulation with microsecond accuracy. Rix and Cracks channeled energy in ways that pushed their crystalline structures to their limits. And Sarah conducted it all like a master musician who had spent her whole life preparing for this one performance. Her mind processed feedback patterns, adjusted frequencies, found the harmony between alien technologies that were never meant to work together. 2 minutes to orbital strike capability, X-117 announced. The vault doors began to resonate, ancient security systems awakening to challenge their attempt. Patterns of light danced across the crystalline surface, searching for any flaw in their deception. Hold the frequency, Sarah commanded. Her voice steadied despite the sweat on her brow. Rix, phase shift your output by 0.003 degrees. Now. The doors shuddered. Warning lights flashed across their neural interfaces. Above them, the defense grid's power readings approached critical levels. 1 minute 30 seconds. X-117 updated. It's not working. Crax's harmonics showed strain. The security systems are about to. Wait, Sarah interrupted, her eyes fixed on the dancing patterns. Look at how the light moves. It's not random. It's like the Unity game's training exercise. The system isn't just checking our frequencies. It's testing our ability to adapt to its challenges. Understanding blazed through their neural link. As one, the team began to shift their energy outputs, not trying to maintain a single perfect frequency, but rather evolving their resonance pattern in response to the security system's tests. Just like Earth, Sarah whispered, the challenge never stops. You either adapt or you die. The vault doors shuddered again, but this time the pattern was different. Ancient mechanisms began to move. 45 seconds. X-117 announced. With a sound like a mountain singing, the doors began to open. Beyond them lay a chamber that hadn't seen light in centuries, a crystalline cathedral dedicated to the preservation of Valkyrian military might. And in its center, a control interface that pulsed with deadly purpose. 30 seconds. They rushed inside, Sarah's fingers dancing across the ancient controls with the same fluid precision she brought to combat. The interface resisted, programs as old as human civilization fighting against her commands. 15 seconds. Captain. X-117's quantum voice held urgency. The targeting systems are locked. Even if we shut down power now, the momentum of the energy buildup. We don't stop it, Sarah interrupted, her hands never pausing. We redirect it. Rix, remember how you channeled energy through the support beam in training? Same principle, much bigger scale. Understanding flowed through their neural link. As one, the team worked to alter the defense grid's targeting systems, using their combined knowledge of energy manipulation, quantum mathematics, and human intuition to achieve the impossible. 5 seconds. 4, 3. Ancient weapon systems reached full power, enough energy to devastate the orbital stations gathering above. But at the last possible moment, Sarah's fingers input the final command sequence. The defense grid fired. Energy bloomed across the sky of Nexus Prime, not in deadly beams targeting civilian ships, but in a spectacular display of light and power that curved around the planet's atmosphere in a dance of controlled chaos. The deadly energy bowled away harmlessly into space, transformed from a weapon of mass destruction into a reminder of what cooperation could achieve. In the vault, Sarah's team watched through their neural interfaces as the crisis passed. Slowly, the ancient chamber's lights dimmed to normal levels, and the weight of centuries seemed to lift from their shoulders. "Impossible," a voice said from the doorway. They turned to see Vex, who had apparently broken free of his restraints. But the Valkyrian's harmonics now held more wonder than rage. "All our resources, all our planning, defeated by a human using our own technology in ways we never imagined." "Not defeated," Sarah corrected, her voice gentle but firm. "Evolved. The same way humanity evolved on Earth, not by being the strongest or the most lethal, but by learning to see possibilities in every challenge. By understanding that true strength comes in many forms, and the greatest power lies in combining those forms in new ways." Director Lysara's hologram materialized in the chamber, her four eyes taking in the scene with ancient wisdom. And that, cadets, was the final test of this cycle's Unity games. Shock rippled through their neural interfaces. Sarah's mind raced, connecting dots she hadn't seen before. The convenient timing of the crisis, the way it had forced them to combine their abilities. "You knew," she said to Lysara, "about the hidden history, about Vex's group. All of it." "Of course," the director's hologram smiled. "Did you think it was accident that brought the first human cadet to our academy in the same cycle that our sealed records began to degrade? Sometimes the only way to heal old wounds is to lance them completely." She turned to address them all, her presence filling the ancient chamber. "The Unity games have always been about more than combat prowess. They test our ability to overcome not just physical challenges, but the prejudices and limitations we place upon ourselves. Today, you have all demonstrated the true nature of strength." Sarah looked at her team, a Valkyrian warrior who had learned to channel power with precision instead of pride, a Felideian whose sensitivity had proven as valuable as any weapon, a quantum being who had found elegance in organic chaos, and a commander who had faced centuries of hidden shame with new courage. "The Academy accepts your performance as confirmation of graduation requirements," Lysara announced. "Congratulations, cadets. You are now full members of the Galactic Peace Force. All of you," she added, glancing at Vex and his followers, "though some of you may require additional lessons in historical perspective." As they filed out of the vault, Rix fell into step beside Sarah. "Captain," his crystalline form shifted in what she had learned was an expression of curiosity. "Did you really spend your nights studying our biological frequencies just in case you needed to hack an ancient security system?" Sarah smiled that quiet smile that had become legendary at the Academy. "Humans don't believe in being unprepared," she said. "On Earth, you never know when understanding something completely unrelated to your current situation might suddenly become the key to survival. We call it homework." Rix's form rippled with what might have been laughter. "Humans," he said, but now the word held respect instead of disdain. "The galaxy's greatest survivors." "No," Sarah corrected as they emerged into the Academy's halls, where future generations would learn new ways of measuring strength. "Just its most adaptable students." Above them, the last traces of redirected energy painted the sky in colors no single species could have created alone. It was, Sarah thought, a perfect illustration of what humanity had always known, that the greatest victories come not from dominating the universe, but from learning to dance with it in all its infinite variety. The end.